what is something that's often overlooked or not talked about enough?
The risk of recruiting. That, I think, is something that the sexiness of building a team is the larger focus than the risk of building a team. And I am a huge fan and advocate of building a team in the life insurance space, but I think that you have to earn your right almost to be able to understand really what it takes to see success in order to be able to transfer that experience and belief into other people.
Whether you're brand new or you're looking to get started in the telesales final expense industry, then this podcast is for you, because I have Powerhouse, the founder of Empower Life Group, Miss Dana Nesen, all the way from California, and she is going to share with us some proven strategies, proven tips, hacks, whatever you want to call it, to help set yourself up for success your very first year in this industry. Dana, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Rob. Thanks for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
Absolutely. As we were talking off camera, I said, I really want to put together something that's going to help that first year agent that's looking to get into final expense telesales and give them a solid foundation. So let me start here, because I hear this all the time about leads, and I'm sure you do too. So maybe there's a new agent out there that says, or that's asking, Dana, what is a good lead? Is there such a thing as a good lead? Is there a bad lead? Is there a good lead? Is there kind of in the middle ground lead? Can you talk about that just for a second? Because you and I know that leads are the lifeline to any, or lifeblood, to any successful agency.
Yeah, I'm really glad you started with that question, because at some point during this conversation, I wanted to help define what a lead is and make sure that agents have the right expectations going into it, because I think there's a misnomer. A lot of people get into the business and they're sold the concept of people inquire online to get life insurance. You call them, you give them their options, and they buy. And although the theory of that is true, you have to understand what goes into how a lead is created, so that you know why you get sales resistance when you call the leads that inquired that said they wanted the thing that you're selling. And that's the disconnect. So the majority of leads that are generated in the final expense space or the simplified issue life space, the majority of them are generated on platforms like Facebook, right? Or YouTube or TikTok or any social media platform. And what's happening is you have a prospect, right, who's searching. They're on Facebook. They're catching up with their grandkids. They're seeing, what reels are being served to them. And the initial intent when they went to Facebook was not to buy life insurance or search for life insurance, right? Anytime we visit these social media platforms, it's not for the intent of buying something, but there's this funny thing that exists out there called the algorithm, and it knows what we might be looking for and trying to, because we are the product on social media. That's why it's free, because we get to sell things to people, or people get to sell things to us. And so when our 70-year-old grandmother is on Facebook scrolling around and she gets served an ad that says, seniors get up to, $20,000 in insurance to cover your burial so your kids don't have to come out of pocket, that might spark something in 70-year-old grandma. She might click on the ad and say, I'd like to know more about that. That inquiry gets sent, and then grandma keeps scrolling. But now she has entered the final expense algorithm. And so what's going to happen is now every 5 things that grandma scrolls, she's going to get served another final expense ad and another final expense ad and maybe a Medicare ad. And she might actually click on a couple of these thinking that she's going to get information right now. And so even though you might be in a program that says the leads are exclusive to you, there's no such thing as an exclusive lead. What it is, it's a exclusive inquiry in a lot of cases, where that one inquiry goes to you. but grandma might have clicked on two, three, four, or five different ads that are going to two, three, four, or five different agents. And
Sure.
therefore, speed to lead is important, and understanding that now their phone is going to be ringing a lot. You're going to have resistance. They maybe weren't expecting a call. They might have thought they were just going to get something on their phone or get something sent to them in the email or mail. They don't know how it works. And so for a new agent, I think having the right expectations about what a lead is, how did the lead get created, and why am I getting everybody saying stop calling me,
Mhm.
and I
Right.
already took care of it and I don't want to deal with it anymore when these people inquired. And so understanding the psychology behind that is critical, so that you know that that is normal, it's real, and you have to get really good at that part.
Yeah.
Long
Thank you
answer.
for explaining. Yeah. Thank you for explaining that. No, that's a great answer because you know this. A lot of people don't talk about that, right? They just
Yeah.
talk about leads, 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 buy leads, get these leads, exclusive leads. These are hot leads. These are the best leads. So let me ask a part B to that. If someone's a brand new agent watching this today, do
Mhm.
you recommend, because you've been doing this a while, you've been very successful with it, you're one of the best trainers in the industry. Um, do you recommend that agents, if they're brand new, do you recommend they buy leads from a vendor, or do you believe in having them go ahead and learning how to create their own branded leads?
I it's a hard question to answer, I think, in the way that you're asking it. So,
Sure,
because I do think in order to be profitable, you have
sure,
to take control of your leads and be able to generate them yourself. However, I don't want them to spend time generating them themselves. Like, you're going to either be a salesperson or a marketer.
sure.
And I think when
Okay.
brand new agents veer onto paths, then they can't get really good at one thing. And so my agents have the option to buy leads or self generate leads, but I've partnered with a marketing company that does it for them, and they just pay a
Mm.
monthly fee, so that that part gets taken off of their plate and they can just focus on mastering the sales process.
Yeah, because you could spend a lot of time trying to learn it on your own, right? Or even a
Mhm.
lot of time trying to research the right marketing company to work with. And is that something that you would recommend? And I'm putting the cart before the horse here, but I just want to stay
Yeah.
on leads just for a second or two longer. Is that something that you recommend when people are, for lack of better words, looking or shopping for an upline? That could be a very big value add, right? That's someone that's already partnered with a trusted marketing agency where they can just plug and play into that system.
I think it's really important because new agents in a new industry don't know what they don't know. And so not only are you trying to figure out who to partner with, what carriers to get, what's
Yeah.
a good commission rate, who has good training. Everybody says they have good resources. Now I have to find leads, and where can I get good leads? And at the end of the day, the agency that provides the most value to the agents is going to have a higher chance of getting that agent off the ground into profitability and reducing some of that churn that a lot of IMOs experience.
Yeah, and you said something there that just kind of sparked a question in my mind is so many times people are sold commission, right? Go where the best commission is, but the marketing sucks, the training sucks, and really there's no value there. And you can have the best commission in the world, but like you said, if you just don't know what you don't know, you're just really going to spin your wheels, get discouraged, get frustrated, and probably drop out within the first 60 to 90 days. Can you talk
Yeah.
about that just for a moment?
Yeah, I have people all the time actually coming to our team who are on what we call Broker Island, where
Mm.
all they really have going for them is a high commission rate, but
Right.
they have no support, they have no training. They kind of lost their motivation to keep pushing,
Yeah.
and they've taken 10 to 20 points less to sell more than they would on their
Uh-huh.
own, right? Because 100%, or what's the phrase? 100% of nothing is still nothing, or
Right.
120% of nothing is still nothing. And
Exactly.
so we have like a platform to get people escalated and moved up to whatever commission they earn. but you have to earn it.
Yeah, no, I think that's very, very important because you see that all over the place, right? On Instagram, TikTok, we're going to give you this big commission, but they really don't disciple you. Right. And if you're truly going to disciple agents, and I'm using a biblical term,
Sure.
right? But if you disciple agents, it really takes an investment of time, right? You got to invest your life in them for a certain season, get them up and running. The way you do that is through your systematic platform, which, like I've said, is one of the best in the industry. Everybody raves about your training because you can tell you really want to give them a step-by-step process and pour into their lives. Another thing that you said earlier was about psychology. So
Yeah.
let's go to the next question here about a script, right?
Okay.
When I search on YouTube, I can type in final expense script. You see everybody telling me that they have a 6-figure script, a 7-figure script. Talk about how important a script is, because you now we've talked about the leads, right? How important is a script, and talk about the psychology that goes into that.
Yeah, a script is important because agents need a framework, right? They need to know what to say next. But once the agents understand the
Sure.
framework, actually, a lot of my training is off script because
Mm,
you can actually be so handicapped to a script that you've lost the ability to really listen to the prospect and the clues
great
that they're
point.
giving you. And so that's actually one of the reasons that I don't give my script away, even to other agents in our same IMO, because if I'm not training you on
Mm,
it, a script by itself isn't really going to give you the 6 figures that you're looking for if you don't understand some of the unscripted things like pacing, tonality, volume, active listening, clarifying questions, things that I cannot script for every single prospect. I look at a
sure.
script as like a skeleton that has
Yeah.
different parts. And so I do on Friday afternoons, I do a new script workshop for agents
Okay.
and we do role play the script, but I talk about the psychology of why that section is written the way that it is. And then we take the bones of that and we drill deeper so that they really understand why they don't just skim past that just because it's a question on written on a piece of paper. And so yes, a script is important. I mean, I had a script when I first started, even though it was written for field agents, but I just needed to understand, okay, how do I take someone from hello to congratulations and what does that
Sure.
look like? In my head, I needed to understand that. So we know we have our opener, maybe objection handling. We have a discovery process. This is the order of my script: discovery process. Then we have some credibility, education. We talk about the need, how much coverage they might need. Then I do underwriting. Then I go into offering options, objection handling at the end if that's appropriate. And then the cool down, which is just as important part of the script as the discovery. So I think once agents understand the flow, then then the script by itself is just like it's just the starting point. Yes, you probably should have a good script, but understanding why it's written that way is also really important.
Yeah, so you're a believer in giving them at least somewhat of a roadmap or a foundation, but also being able to adapt that to their own pace and personality, if you will, right? And have the flexibility. Is that what you're saying?
We'll definitely have flexibility, but it's
Mm,
less about their personality and more
okay,
about helping train the skills to listen to the prospect because that has less to do with their personality and, oh, can you like me? And making the script their own. That's not what I teach. I teach
okay,
we need to listen because the phrase that I like to say is when you say something, it means something. But when your
sure.
prospect says something, it means everything. And so your personality and you tailoring the script to make it your own has nothing to do with listening to the words that are coming out of your prospect's mouth. And more importantly, how they're saying them. And so those are the skills that move the needle, not making a script your own based on your personality style.
Well, no, I'm glad I brought that up because you hear a lot of people say, "Well, I can't do final expense sales because of my personality. Maybe I'm too shy. Maybe I'm too this. Maybe they're like me and they talk too loud and too fast." But what you're saying is if you can teach them this right skill set, then really anyone can adopt what you're teaching and implement it in such a way that you're listening to the prospect, you're answering their questions, you're addressing their needs, and they can be successful in this industry.
If someone is coachable and they come into my training, by the time they've exited the training, which I don't think training is something you do, it's something that you always do. You don't do it once, you do
Sure.
it always. But the way that I
Right.
teach sales is in a way to where it's you could go into any industry and
Mm.
barely know anything about the product that you're selling, but I've taught you so well about the psychology of the sales process and human behavior that you know exactly what to do to get somebody to buy the product, and even on your first day. Um, because sales is more than just the widget itself.
Yeah. So talk about, because you've trained a lot of really successful agents, you've been a very successful agent, had a very successful agency. What do you see that really separates those that get in this industry and maybe have some success, or maybe even they just, kind of flop out, and those that really achieve success? Is there two or three things that really rise to the top that you could share with us today?
Sure. Yeah, there's a couple things. Number one would be showing up and being super, super engaged in all of the training and resources that are being offered to you. I can tell pretty early on when someone comes in if they're going to be successful, if depending on the questions that they ask, right? Because I know whether or not someone has taken the time to go through the training modules or not based on their questions and whether or not they're participating and engaging in the training or not. So really getting out of your own way and removing that feeling of being embarrassed if you say something wrong or bad. It's none of that is true. It's just the more you say, the more you start learning, absorbing what you're learning. So I think that's really important early on is
Sure.
don't be afraid to communicate and participate in the training and really go through the resources. Once you've done that and you get carrier writing numbers, I think that's another piece is you'll have agents that'll want to wait until they have
Mhm.
all 10 of their writing numbers, for example,
Right.
where we have agents right now who I think they're moving from one agency to another, so we have releases and stuff and new carrier contracts that we're having to go through. And as soon as this agent got a GI carrier and a level carrier, she was off to the races. That's all she needed, and she was like, how soon can I get leads and get on the phone?
Right.
And that's really important because you don't have to agents are too concerned about, okay, I have to have every single carrier, every single option,
Right.
or I'm not going to be able to sell. So that's really important. Is that's not important. It's the sales process and helping someone feel comfortable about making a decision. And then the third thing I think is leads. Of course, going back to the first question is
Sure.
lead volume, and this is my favorite part of it. And this is why self-generating leads ends up being a really important thing because in
Sure.
telesales, lead volume is everything. And
Okay.
a lot of times when I'm scrolling myself on Facebook and I'm in a lot of these Facebook groups
Hmm.
and agents will ask questions about lead providers. And a lot of times you'll see stuff like, I tried this lead source, I tried this
Right.
lead source, and I'm not going to name drop any names. They
Yeah.
suck. I didn't get anything
Yeah.
from it. And then you
Yep.
have the comment section, which is commiserating with them. And every now and then I'll hop into these questions in the Facebook groups. And the number one question I always ask without fail, like a robot, is how many leads did you buy?
Hmm.
And Rob, what answer do you think that I get back 9 times out of 10?
I would say it's probably either got to be 15 or 10 or less.
Well, usually in these purchase lead options, there is a
Yeah.
minimum
Okay.
and but you are correct. It is the
Yeah.
minimum and the minimum is
Yeah.
usually 20.
Yeah. Okay.
And okay. And so I feel very fortunate that I have been in telesales since 2004. and I sold leads and marketing to real estate agents and brokers at a company called Realtor.com for 7 years.
Okay.
And the number one thing that I noticed selling leads was the real estate agents who bought the minimum amount, right? We called them
Mhm.
slots in a zip code. It would deliver like 20 leads over a 12-month period. The renewal rate on that was incredibly low. I mean, like next to nothing. But the
Mm,
brokers who would come in and buy leads in counties, multiple count volume of leads, not only were
sure.
they renewing, they were adding zip codes because they were seeing so much success. So it's not the leads, it's with telesales, getting people on the phone, going back to remembering that you're not the only person calling them. There's no such
Yeah.
thing as an exclusive lead. People might not
Yeah.
answer the phone. They might change their mind. They might not qualify. Like it might be a bad time. The only way to win in telesales at a high level is to get a high volume of leads and then implement the skills that you've learned. And now here's the other thing with that. When you're new, you actually need more leads than
Hmm.
someone like me
Yeah.
because our skill levels are different. So
That's
I
right.
don't even need to spend as much on leads as you do. So not only are you new and you're afraid of investing because you're learning this skill, you're worried you're going to mess up, you need to pay your bills yesterday, but you actually need to probably spend twice as much
Hmm.
than someone who's mastered the skill to actually make the numbers work for you while you're learning. So a new agent has to think of their investment as their tuition to learn. And you might not get an immediate ROI, but what are you going to get instead? And that's the
Yeah.
mindset challenge that a lot of new life insurance agents have to confront themselves with, and why free lead programs offered at other companies are sometimes a good option because you don't
Sure.
have that stress anymore, even though you're paying for it in a lower commission rate.
So someone's asking right now, right on the other side of this camera, when this drops, what is the lead volume that I need to have? Right. Obviously not 20 or less, the
Right.
minimum. What is it that I need to have as a new agent? And then talk about the mindset that goes into that, because that's an investor's mindset, right? This,
Yeah.
especially if you have someone coming from a W-2, employee mindset, it may be hard for them to transition to going, hey, I got to invest in my business. And I know you can't give us an exact cost, but could you give us a range of numbers of what a new agent should look at investing money wise on a weekly or monthly basis their first year?
So you asked me two questions. You asked me how many
Sure.
leads an agent should get per week and then how much they
Sure.
should invest. Do you want me to answer
Sure.
both?
Please.
Okay. So really the answer is 100 leads a week, but I am
Okay.
okay with a brand new agent starting at a minimum of 50 leads a week. And the reason
Okay.
I'm okay with that is because they are getting thrown a lot at them at once, learning carrier applications, figuring out how to use insurance toolkits, having the conversation, attending all of these meetings. Like it's a fire hose at first. And I do think 100 leads a week for a brand new agent, even though that really is the formula to really great weeks, it might be a little overwhelming at first. And
Sure.
so 50 leads a week, I think, is a really good bench line as long as you know you have to increase over time.
Mhm.
And so, because of that, going back to why it was really important for me to partner with a marketing company is if I have the expectation that these agents need to get a high volume of leads, well, I
Sure.
better be partnering with them to help them get them at the lowest possible cost without
Sure.
sacrificing intent or quality. And so my agents are getting leads anywhere from $6 to $12 per lead, as opposed to having to pay $20 or $25 per lead. And so now I can say, look, I've given you a solution to where for your same $500 a week spend, you can be in a position to get those 50 leads a week, as opposed to I don't even think you can get 20 leads a week for $500 a week right now with third-party lead vendors. Maybe something like that.
Sure.
So, as far as a monthly budget, there's a lot more that goes into investing in your business besides leads. You
Right.
have the CRM, you have a
Right.
dialer, you have text messaging fees, you have E&O insurance, you have insurance toolkits, you have your non-resident states. Agents, if they're going to
Right.
do sales, you got to have 10 to 15 states minimum so that you can have
Yeah.
a wider footprint. Those are really important things. So there's a lot that goes into investing in your business, but I would say probably $3,000 to $4,000 a month.
Okay.
Um, but the side step to that is that's why it was even more important for me to create a foolproof onboarding system. Because when I got my license,
Yeah.
I came from a W 2. I was a top sales rep. I won President's Club every year, and I could not find a leader at the time that gave me the confidence that I needed to invest. And it's not because I couldn't afford it, it's because I didn't have the structure. I didn't have the blueprint that said,
Right.
okay, that actually makes sense to me. Everyone was kind of feeding me the BS, like, oh, yeah, you just buy 20 leads, you're going to make
Yeah.
$10,000. And I'm like, that's not true. And so I actually started in a free lead program because I couldn't find someone that built what I built out for my team.
Yeah. Yeah, and you brought up the word confidence, and I want to go to a quote. I think you posted it the other day, if I remember. It says, "Momentum is doing the right things long enough that your confidence catches up to your activity, and your results catch up to your effort." So I
Yeah,
want to talk about that just for a second. You use the word confidence. You go into this industry, it's overwhelming. You're trying to get carriers, CRM, all this other stuff, leads. You're learning the upline better, all of these other things. Talk about, because in the Medicare, I hear a lot of people go, well, I'm just not very confident, right? And a lot of times they won't do anything because they lack confidence. So talk about that quote, maybe expand on it just for a little bit, and how confidence, that sometimes we just got to do something and then the confidence will catch up later.
exactly. Because confidence doesn't come before mastering a skill. Confidence is a result of the evidence that the activity provides. It's it's like a catch 22. Like I can't be confident learning, like confident at the piano after my first lesson. I have
Sure.
to sit at that piano and I have to learn the keys and I have to play over and over and over again until that confidence builds. And it's the same thing in sales. Well, of course you're not confident. You don't have the evidence and the
Right.
experience yet to tell you internally that you are. And so we do a lot of self development work, and
Sure.
you have to almost do the activity as if you were the expert. So if you close your eyes and you visualize that you are at the top of your game, you know exactly what to say when someone gets on the phone. You've done the application a million times. You're making whatever amount is makes you feel good per year. You're already there.
Sure.
What does that version of yourself do? Do they stare at the phone and are afraid of making the calls? Or do they take immediate action? Does that version of yourself take immediate action because they've already seen the results of their efforts? And that's the person you have to embody until the evidence of your activity builds and creates the confidence you're looking for.
Yeah, that's so good. I was sharing this with someone the other day that when I started back over, right? You know what it's like to start back over, lose everything and start back over. That happened to my wife and I in 2021. Well, I had a limiting belief for many years because mostly what I did was face to face in person.
Right.
And so I knew if I could get in the room, I could close it. I love people. I love the passion, the energy. But I realized that to maximize this start over and be more efficient, I had to pick up the phone and do Medicare telesales.
Mm.
And I told somebody I just had to consistently put in the reps. And as I did that, my confidence grew and my confidence eventually catched up, or caught up, excuse me. And so I love that because so many agents want to know everything first.
Yeah.
And it's like it's the enemy of doing anything at all. Right. And I'm not saying just go out there and wing it and, shoot all your guns in the air and just, go crazy. But it's interesting how many agents just wait until the confidence is there before they'll do anything. And I believe it plays into what we talked about earlier. This is why you need an upline that can speak life into you, right? This is why you need a community that can put fresh wind in your sails, because this industry can beat you up and spit you out pretty quick.
Exactly. Yeah. And I would even challenge that agent that says, I'm not confident, to listen to how they're talking to themselves, right?
Yeah.
Because when you say you're not confident, like, who told you that? Who told you
Sure.
that you weren't
That's
confident? Where
good.
does that even come from? And what happens if you flip that script and instead of saying, I'm not confident, saying, I am learning a new skill and challenging myself every day to get
That's
1%
good.
better. And your brain will believe you no matter what you say or what you think. And so the more you tell yourself that you are not something, you will believe it. And said you got to really flip that. And sometimes it sounds silly, the whole self-talk stuff, but we talk about that a lot. You have to anytime someone says in our meeting, our sales meeting, something negative about themselves, I've trained the
Yeah.
team so well to say, wait, what did you say? And then we make them reframe it.
Yeah, no, I think that's very good because, I'm a realist, and even though I'm a positive guy and optimistic guy, I have to be careful because I can get so real that it gets in the way of my optimism, right? And that's just, you've heard it. That's just raw stuff. That's just,
Yeah.
you know, fluffy stuff. But no, it really is real. One of my favorite influencers is a guy named Myron Golden, and he
Yeah.
talks about living from a identity, right? Because if you let that negative self-talk continue, and like what you said, who did you learn that from? Who first spoke that over you or spoke that into you that now you've created this whole narrative around that you're not confident or you're not whatever, fill in the blank.
Exactly.
And if you're not around people that are challenging that and holding you accountable, then it's easy to build around that identity. And then pretty soon you look up 20 years from now and you built this whole life on top of this identity. Right. So
Right.
I'm definitely glad that we talked about that. Two more things before we close shop today.
Okay.
What is one thing that is often overlooked or not talked about enough in the telesales final expense industry? Right? Because a lot of times people seem to get seduced by what I call the sexy in the insurance industry. And
Hmm.
oftentimes, and I'm not against that. I'm not against people making money and success, but oftentimes it's at the expense of doing what's necessary to really get to that level. So what is something that's often overlooked or not talked about enough?
The risk of recruiting.
Okay.
That I think is something that the sexiness of building a team is the larger
Mhm.
focus than the risk of building a team. And I am a huge fan and advocate of building a team in the life insurance space, but I think that you have to earn your right almost to be able to understand really what it takes to see success in order to be able to transfer that experience and belief into other people. And the huge IMOs out there that are rewarding people more off of recruiting bodies
Yeah.
than they are off of personal production. What a lot of new agents don't realize is when you're just bringing people in who really maybe aren't super serious about this, they're just looking for a side
Sure.
income. And let's say they sell a policy or two and they're like, this isn't for me. I'm going to go back to, my day job. Well, those two policies that agent sold cancel and charge back. Your agent is out of the
Yeah,
business now. And guess who has to pay for that debt? You
you
do.
do. Yeah.
And so if you aren't bringing agents into a system of sustainability with people that have the same vision and goals as you do, you will be run out of this business just as fast because of all of the roll up debt that you're going to hit. Because guess who it doesn't impact likely? Your upline or your upline's upline,
Yeah.
because there's so many layers of protection for them that
Mhm.
all of the risk is now on you. And you are basically co-signing on your agent's debt when they get advanced, that if you don't really trust them and trust their intention,
Mhm.
you will be out of this business just as fast as they will. And I think that's not talked about often enough.
Yeah, and wouldn't you agree too, that some people try to start the recruiting process too soon,
Yes,
right?
that's
Because
what I'm
that's what you were
saying.
kinda talking about, like, right,
Yeah,
that's what you're saying, right? That sometimes it's like, go learn the business for yourself. How can you disciple someone in something that you don't even know yourself or fully know,
right. Well, there's a
right? And
lot of
instead
people in the not what's the word I'm looking for? It's not the word isn't MLM, but it's the type of business. There's a word for it. I'm forgetting
direct
right now.
sales, networking.
Networking. Yeah,
Marketing?
network marketing. So
Network?
there's a
Yeah.
lot of people that come from network marketing that
Sure.
excites them.
Yeah.
But there's a huge failure rate in this industry specifically. I mean, I'm
Yes.
sure there is in all industries where network marketing is
Yeah.
involved, but I've had a lot of people reach out to me saying, I'm recruiting all these people. None of them are even making it. And it becomes a grind to them
Yeah.
because there's no structure or support for the agents and they didn't go through it themselves. So they don't even know how to provide structure or support.
Well, even when my wife and I started over, I didn't want to recruit. I wanted to write on my own pen. I'd kind of made a promise to myself that I would not purposely recruit for at least 2 to 3 years because I knew the agent side of it, but I didn't understand the agency side of things. And
Hmm.
so I really wanted to write. Now, what was really cool was as we were writing in our own pen and hustling and showing up every day, people were attracted to that and
Yeah.
wanted to join our team. So that was the byproduct of just showing up every day, being coachable, being teachable, and just really making it happen. As we close today, Dana, what is something that I haven't talked about? I mean, obviously, I have a whole pen and pad here of tons of questions I could ask, but we have a limited amount of time today. What is
Hmm.
something as we close today that you go, I have to make sure these new telesales agents understand this, or at least some wisdom that you want to impart to them?
I mean, I think that if you're trying to figure out whether to get into final expense life insurance or not, you have to really figure out, do you want to get into it as a job to pay your
Mm,
bills, or do you want to get into it as a career to grow a business? And that
good.
has to be the first defining path on which way you go. Because if you're coming into life insurance sales as a sales job, as a way to pay your bills and support your family,
Mhm.
then this ultimately might not be the career for you because you are going to be likely to dip your toe, buy the minimum amount of leads, maybe not jump over dollars to pick up pennies, not get the CRM, not get the dialer because you're trying to hold on to every penny that you have, and then you're just wasting it. If you're here to get a job, I would implore you, encourage you to go into an LOA model or a free lead model, because you don't have that entrepreneurial mindset that you're not
Right.
spending money, you're investing money. And if you
Mm,
are looking at it to have a career and grow a business, whether you're a solopreneur who never wants a team or whether you do want a team, then you have to find an agency and an IMO that has the community, the structure, the support. I knew right away, and I would love to know how you feel about this.
sure.
When I lost my team last year,
Yeah.
and I was looking for a new home, there were two things that I knew I didn't want. And this just came from experience in this business. I knew I didn't want to align myself with an agency that was owned by an Integrity or an AmeriLife or
Sure.
some like those big companies because that felt
Sure.
very corporate to me. It felt like I
Yeah.
had no voice. It felt like I was just a P in a sea of chaos. And a lot of those IMOs like love the fact that they're owned by those companies. So I knew I didn't want that. And that's what I want your opinion on in a second.
Sure.
But I also knew I didn't want to align myself with an agency or an IMO that was owned and controlled by one person. Because
Yeah.
there's a lot of those where they have like silent partners. They say they're an IMO, but they're really not. But your whole livelihood and everything is on the line of a single person. And that I did not want. And so what I found in Lasting Mark, right, where I ended up partnering with was
Sure.
a board of people, right, that was
Yeah.
owned by 9, 10 people with 50 plus employees. It felt stable. It felt big enough to where I felt like I was part of something big, stable. It had trips, it had events, but not too big to
Yeah.
where I didn't have a voice and a say in the direction of the company. So, what are your thoughts on companies that are owned by these big?
No, I totally agree. I'm a big believer in alignment. That alignment sets the sets can set you up for success or sabotage you down the road. But for
Yeah.
me, I totally agree. I love Lasting Mark because Lasting Mark is all about growth and getting bigger. but
Yeah.
they've done a really good job at also keeping it small by having community. Because a lot of them don't focus on community. It's just all about growth and getting bigger. And yeah, you go to events and you win awards. But like you said, it just feels very sterile. It just feels very
Mhm.
mechanical. It just feels like nobody really cares, or you're just another agent and another number. And you know this. Uh, it's really cool to be able to get on a Zoom with the CEO or the CVO or the,
Yeah.
whoever, the board members, and they're all treat you like you really matter. And then I
Yeah.
love what you said too about having multiple people on the board. I look at things through a church planning lens because I'm a former church planner and pastor. And I was always leery of churches that the whole family was in charge of everything. Not hating,
Mm.
not saying they're bad, but I
Uh-huh.
just didn't want just this one voice, right? I wanted more than yes men or yes women. I wanted people to be able to challenge ideas and come together. And I really feel Lasting Mark does a great job of everybody's voice matters and coming together and, and,
Yeah,
and challenging in a good way, in a healthy way, in other words. So yeah, I agree with you.
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah,
So I would
totally.
say, make sure you know what you're looking for. And I know that's hard for agents because they don't know what they're looking for. So watching stuff like this hopefully is helpful.
Absolutely. So as we close today, how do people get a hold of you? Like, let's say somebody goes, man, Dana's been spitting fire for the last 35, 40 minutes here. I want to reach out to her, see if there's a possibility of joining her team or getting her coaching program, whatever that looks like. What's the best way to get a hold of you?
You can find me on YouTube at Final
Okay.
Expense Telesales. And in the description of all of my videos, there's a link to join an opportunity call. I'm on Instagram at Final Expense Telesales and Empower Life Group. And you can find me on Facebook under my name, Dana Nesen.
Absolutely. And we'll put all that information in the video description today. And by the way, if you've gotten value out of our conversation today, take a moment to comment, like, subscribe below. If there's something that Dana and I didn't talk about, which is a lot, right, in our
Yeah.
short amount of time, comment below. And I promise you, we'll get you those answers. We'll get you in contact with Dana. And if you're saying, well, I don't have a lot of money, I have a lot of time, then I want you to go check out this interview that I did with my friend Tim Smith and how he's generating 700 to 1,000 leads on TikTok every single month. And you can check that out here.